So as you can see, I've taken all the masking off by rubbing it off. By the way, this is the masking I use. It's Winsor & Newton, colorless masking, removable. You have to make sure it's not the permanent kind, it's removable. That's important. I have made that mistake where I went to buy masking, I didn't pay attention, and I got the permanent kind, and that will mess up your painting. You do not want that. And then I will probably work mostly with my Alvaro Castagnet size 4 mop brush because it has such a great little tiny point on it. I mean, look at that little point. Gotta love it. And this is my newest brush. I want to get some more brushes from him because I'm so happy with this one. I've got an old one, and I can't remember now. I don't remember it having such a good point, but this is my old one. And it's great for getting paper wet and doing big areas of color, but it's lost its point, but it still has a good stiffness to it, so it doesn't just mush on the paper. And as you can see, the paint is all worn off, so it's been a good brush. Alright, so I want to, let's move this over here so I can have room to put the picture up later. So I am looking very closely now at my reference photo, looking back and forth from my painting to the reference photo to make sure that I am getting the result that I want and getting it realistic. So this guy's lower lid is basically almost not very visible, so I'm going to go ahead and just put some more paint in here. And I will need to scrub it later. That will be later though. And just refining really nicely this eye. And for my black dark mix, I'm using ultramarine, blue, burnt sienna, and maybe a little Winsor Violet. Now, if you guys are interested to know exactly what brands and what paints I do use, I do make that available to my Patreon subscribers, which is only $5 a month, and it's very easy to unsubscribe. So you can even try it free up until the 1st of the month. So it's really easy to get out of. But anyway, so I'm just using the point of my brush to get a good bit of detail. And you guys know by now probably that one of the important things in painting is figuring out how to compose the painting so that it leads the viewer's eye around the painting. And the way to get the viewer to come back to the eyes is to really focus on the details in the eye. So that's another reason why it's so important to focus on these details. Now, as you can see, as much as I can, and I've talked about this a lot too, as I'm trying to attach this eye to the background of the rest of the dog by kind of attaching like this dark color as much as I can to the eyebrows. At this point, I'm trying to work really detailed and even get a little bit of fur texture in there. Now this right here needs to be scrubbed, so I'll go back in there and scrub with my oil painting brush, as you guys have seen me do a lot in my other videos. But I will, if my battery holds out on me here, I will demonstrate that. I just ordered another battery so I can do more videos. Yay! And just going in here and really refining all this. for these dark areas, I'm probably getting about a cream consistency amount of of paint on my brush, so that it dries really dark. And one of the many reasons to use a combination of different colors and not just use straight lamp black, for example, is that lamp black experiences a large drying shift. What is a drying shift? A drying shift is when you put down the paint, it looks really bright, it looks like a nice bright color, it looks dark, and then it dries and it lightens up and maybe loses some of its saturation. That's what we call a drying shift. So a combination black of burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, maybe a little Winsor violet in there, that black is going to have less of a drying shift and stay nice and dark for you, more so than just using straight black paint out of the tube. So that's just yet another reason to mix your own darks. That if you guys watch my video on my favorite reds, I share a website that you can go to and really learn about paints and their properties, and like drying shift. That's where I learned about drying shift, and a lot of other things. And he has a really good mix for black that he likes, and I forget what it is, but if you go on there, he talks about, he writes about what colors he uses to make a dark. Okay, so now I've got all this pretty much to the tonal levels I want. I got the darks dark in the eye. I'll probably go in and put another layer, but this dog's eye has a lot of soft edges around the eye, and right now where I use the masking, you can see hard edges. Like this line right here is hard, this is still pretty hard, this is a hard edge. I want to just soften it with my little oil painting brush. So I'm going to go in, I get some water on my oil painting brush, and just it doesn't take a lot, very light touch. Just going to soften that line, and then you can see I'm blotting into the dark just so that I don't get like a hard line just from my scrubbing. And as you practice, you'll see what I mean, that it can create another hard line when you scrub. And I will go back after this. I'm just softening. It's almost like blotting, like when you put on makeup. Like if you are a female and you put on concealer, you blot it on to keep the edges soft so it all blends. Same exact idea. You're just blending. See, this is getting too light, but at least it's staying soft. And I can go back in and redefine a little bit of that edge of the eye that is lighter. So that's a lot nicer, a lot softer. Just blot a tiny little bit on this hard edge. And then go back in and refine a little bit while it's still wet is probably a good time to do it. And see how it's keeping a soft edge now there. And a lot of this line is kind of even a completely lost edge. It's not really even there for the most part. So try to get as much done when your paper is still wet. And that's the point where I would stop and just see what you have after everything dries, after your drying shift occurs, just to see what you need to darken still. But I think that looks pretty good.